Welcome to Collecting Consciousness, where we aim to capture the ever-expanding and evolving conscious creations that originate from the minds of fellow podcasters, strangers, dear friends, and loved ones.
In this podcast, we will expand on our inner wisdom and a coming home to self. From our conscious minds to yours, we welcome you to the Collecting Consciousness. Welcome in to another episode of Collecting Consciousness. We are so graciously inspired to have Kasia Flanagan with us. I had mentioned to her earlier that Bethany and I have been expressing our gratitude and excitement for this episode. So let us dive in and get to know this wonderful, inspiring human. Kasia Flanagan is a dedicated womb health and wellness guide, committed to helping women reclaim autonomy over their wombs and embrace their holistic, sexual, and feminine essence. She provides compassionate, woman-centered care from her home-based clinic on a biodynamic farm in the heart of the Canadian Maritimes. In addition to being a devoted mother to 3 Earthside children and 1 angel baby, Kasia is an author, a speaker, iridologist, detox counselor, and a trusted resource for womb wellness. She channels her passion for the sacred feminine through her work, including hosting the Temple podcast, where she explores divinity, alchemy, and the connection between mind, body, and soul. When she is not guiding women on their wellness journey, you can find her in the kitchen, crafting nourishing ancestral meals, or wandering her herb farm with her children, animals, and magical husband, all under the shelter of the trees. Welcome in, Kasia. We are so excited to hear the wisdom that lies within you. And we truly feel that when women gather, inspiration just flourishes and we tap into our creative life force and we allow women to be seen. So we are really excited.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the warm welcome and for the invitation. I'm really happy and truly grateful to be here and share all of this. So how would you like to start? Would you like me to just start talking about womb medicine? Would you like me to share a bit about my story?
Yeah, so I have one question particularly to start, and it's, you call yourself the gatekeeper of women. Can you expand on that, and can you share your mission for women with being the gatekeeper?
Thank you. I'd love to. So a couple of years ago, we were all going through a very strange time in the world. The worlds were shifting, the veils were lifting, and I kept hearing that I'm a woman's gatekeeper. And now I was pretty much in postpartum, and postpartum is a really open and sensitive time for a woman. So your root is open, your crown is open, you've just burst open to be a portal for a life to come through. And I was very open. And you have to also, I just want to put a disclaimer, if you are ever going to give birth, postpartum is really sacred. The number 40 is really sacred, right? 40 days, holding that essence closely, keeping your circle close and tight because you are so open. So the benefit of being so open was I was able to really clearly hear new messages. And I was coloring with my children and just, playing around, being really playful in a totally playful energy. And something kept saying, woman's gatekeeper, woman's gatekeeper. And I didn't fully understand it. I was, again, so open. I just gave birth. Things are really all over the place. And I started to tap into what that meant and what God was asking me to do and how I was to really step into this role. Because my whole life, people have kind of been coming up to me. Like, I remember being a 13 or 14-year-old on the city bus, and women would just sit down and burst their whole stories at me. Mm-hmm. And not in an emotional vomit or a dump. It was just very much like, I need to tell you. And people have always been attracted and magnetically, especially women, to tell me their story, tell me their traumas, or tell me their wins, or tell me the things that they are going through. And so I started, I have this experience here of my postpartum and this message that kept coming through as I was coloring. And then all of the experiences leading up to all this work and teaching workshops about your blood and how you speak about your vulva and how you like your cycle or you don't like your cycle, how you like your body. And I started piecing it all together, especially with also the changes of how people are experiencing gender in this world. I was like, women need a space. Women need to be gate kept. And there is a tradition, there is an honoring of women that occurs if we can honor our feminine essence, our sexual autonomy, our, understanding our fertility and our creation energy. And I was asked to hold that for women. So then I started receiving a lot of information about what it is to be woman, what it is to take care of your fertility, how you can do it holistically without chemicals and alteration, how you can embrace your feminine essence, how you can do this without, giving away your power, how you can use it for creation energy, et cetera, et cetera. So how you can call in your star seeds, whatever, right? Like so many things about women are powerful. And it started to really make sense. It started to, instead of being this broad topic, it started to make sense and started to give itself like almost subheadings into, okay, a woman's gatekeeper carries the codes for the traditional woman's energy, the traditional woman's essence, the traditional woman's experience. And I can say that over the years, as I've been expanding my business and the women that come to me, it's all divinely led, like God, goddess. It's such a balanced experience of the information that comes through me to share with women. And this isn't information that I would say I could make up. This is information that like comes through me, and then I go and I find literature and academia and I'm like, wow, that's really neat. Like something that was never really in my forethought. And I really feel so humbled and loved to be trusted to do this kind of work, to be trusted with women's hearts and their wounds. We are a walking dichotomy of grief and joy and creation and destruction, and it's a really special place. Women are very intricate and complex and yet so simple. So simple. We're so easy. So in a nutshell, a woman's gatekeeper is someone who's going to keep and hold the information for women that is almost being lost. So we are going to gatekeep what it means for women to be women and for women to continue carrying and singing the song for other women to come, other daughters, sisters, etc. I hope that answers your question.
Wow, it does. It's very sacred.
It just burst my heart open. My heart is like, wow, that was so beautiful and feels so deep and so potent. And just very authentic the way that it came through to you. And I just love the gatekeeper concept, because there are so many seated here that are gatekeeping different things, different information systems, like that we have lost as a civilization over the thousands of years. Beyond our like comprehension of how many years we've probably lost this information. And so feels really good to hear somebody harness that word and just really take it serious and understand it and say yes.
Hold the space.
Mission. Yeah, say yes to the mission. Yeah.
And for you, Kasia, it's as you tap into this to help women, to help them with their womb wellness, this feminine energy, where would it be important for women to start to try and find that feminine essence that may have been lost, or where would be a really good starting point for women to start tapping into their true feminine essence?
I always ask women to start with their heart and their womb.
Yes.
So at the beginning of most of my work with clients or any, containers or any study cohorts that I do, the basic work is intention and heart and womb connection. So intention is so crystal clear to the universe. It is your number one way to communicate with the universe. Even if you don't fully understand your intention, it's being laid out for creation. So it's very important, if you can, to have the inner work and to have the wisdom and to have the grounding essence in yourself, to understand yourself. What is your intention? Because that's what's going to play out in your life. Mm-hmm. So first, you play out your intention. That's very important. That's the foundational work of any essence, right? human, ethereal, underworld, shadow, light. Like, what is the intention? What is coming forth? Okay. Pure or not, your intention is like a sacred foundation. It's an agreement. It's an unspoken word. And it resides usually, and my microphone's going to kind of shimmy, but it resides kind of in your heart, right? It also then resides with all of the past and all of the future, right? Almost like an Akashic field there, where your intention is everywhere you've come from and everywhere you're going to be. And the intention potency is in the present, okay? So there's your potency, right? Your intention. You lay your foundation. On top of that, once you understand who you are and why you're here and what you're doing, it doesn't even have to be that intense, but like those who are doing this kind of work, I just want to give you the next steps. You have your intention, you have that base model, and then you have to introduce your heart and your womb. So the heart is your epicenter of desire. And I'm kind of the person who exalts the ego. I'm not really into suppressing the ego. Yeah, we don't want that person to drive all the time, right? Just like we don't want our inner child to drive all the time, or our shadow self, or our higher self. Everybody has to take a turn driving. But the ego is really important because it shows us our desires, right? And our desires are our highest attunement to our success, our happiness, desire, pleasure. Those are the things the universe wants us to experience. So I really believe in exalting the ego. So the desire lays in your heart, and your heart is this epicenter of this desire. And it is also a magnet, both scientifically and spiritually. It is a magnet. And so if you can listen to your desire, you will be propelled to make choices that are of very highest good, right? Because that's your soul mission, right? To follow your desire and your pleasure-based practices, because that's going to lead you to your happiness. Okay. So beyond that, it being a magnet, you're going to also be able to attract and pull yourself to places that you are supposed to be in. And a perfect example is the way I live my life. I live a very heart-led life. I make choices that scare the bananas out of lots of people, but I know that I'm completely protected because I'm making choices from my heart. These choices are for me. They scare the bananas out of you because they're not for your heart. They're not for your desire. They're not for your pleasure. So another great example, diving deeper into that, is when I bought a yurt and lived in a yurt for a very long time with my partner. We only had 2 dogs at the time. Eventually we had a son, and we changed our plans a little bit. But that's when the moon and the sun and the waters and I were all living very, very together. You know, my yurt had a dome. I could see shooting stars at night. Wow. All of our heat was wood. All of our water was brought in by my husband from the bay. We would shower in the rain and with bay water. Like, it was a very earth-based practice. Ooh. That's when it was very earthy, right?
Yes.
Like,
earth magic.
Totally. And I was giving my blood back to the earth. And then it all started this inner-outer environment conduit, which is another thing I talk about in my work, your inner and outer environment biofeedback system. So anyways, I was just really living with my heart. Waking up with the sun, going to sleep with the sun, sun gazing, moon gazing, like a lot of very spiritual, old, arcane practices of connecting, like your heart, your compass, your body, your pineal gland, your third eye. And in that space of really connecting to my heart, I was able to live my life how I'm supposed to live it, right? So my path is very different from yours, Bethany, or yours, Courtney, right? But it's supposed to be, because it's my life. And so that's exalting the ego, following the heart. Okay, so you follow your heart because it's your biggest magnet. Next, move to the womb. And your womb is your biggest creation source. It's where all creation comes from. Everyone, my favorite quote is, everyone's been in the uterus, right? Everyone has come from woman. Everyone has come from this place of the sacred womb, the safest place in the world. And that is a creation zone. Whether you have children or not, it is also where women's essence can come to create projects, to create community gatherings, to create anything that's inspirational, art, etc., right? It comes from a woman's sacral womb space. And so these are associated with the colors orange, right? I like to think of it as a fire, is how I teach my clients, because it's a hearth. You have to tend to your hearth. And some women have a very little fire. Some women have a candle. Some women have smoldering logs. Some women, I have a bonfire, right? Everyone has a different imagery. Everyone has a different hearth that they have. And ultimately, we want to be able to take care of our hearth. right? And we do that in different ways. So we were talking about it a little bit earlier, lipstick, dresses, brushing hair. For some women, it's taking flowers, blowing bubbles. Like, there's some things that just make us playful and in our feminine essence. And I think those are external sources that are really helpful in tapping into our womb. But then I teach women the heart to womb conduit. So I teach that in my Womb Magic Masterclass. I teach that in every class you enter, in one-on-ones. It's just the base of my work, is having a connection from your heart to your womb. And why is that important? Because when your womb is fueling your heart and your heart is fueling your womb, you're creating what you desire, and it's clean. Right? You're manifesting, you're using your creative, your feminine essence to create and lay out a path for you that is meant for you. That's, I think, the basis.
Wow. That is so magical and, again, so sacred to me. I was listening to your podcast and I was on an episode of The Womb Magic, and you expressing the magnet, I always like to lead with my heart as well, but I never had that connection to the womb. And so I'm so excited to now have that connection. It makes so much sense because, yes, the heart is the desire part, but the womb is the creation. So put those two together and you're creating this crazy force. So I'm so excited to have this in my practice now. So thank you for sharing that. And I just want to give you a little compliment. Bethany and I always like to kind of brag on women. You speak so clearly. You speak with such an innate wisdom that comes through, so clear cut that it's so understanding, and it's exciting to kind of just follow along and hear what you have to say. But that womb heart connection, beyond magical. So thank you for giving me that inspiration.
You're very welcome. It's the base of every woman's work, I think, if you can tap into that. And then next step of that is the breath, right? Breath is your life, and you create a conduit. It's not even just the intention and understanding of heart and womb, but then fueling it, right? So then we're bringing in breath into the heart, expanding it, holding it. And I like to think of the colors here as, like a watermelon tourmaline, so like emerald and green and pink or gold, right? Like, those are the colors for me for the heart, if you're having a hard time imagining. And then you use that breath to fuel your womb, which again is like the orange and the red and the yellow, right? Those are those places. And then you fuel and take that, bring them back up to the heart. So you're creating a conduit. And this is where I recommend doing breath work with someone who is, skilled in this, who has done this for a long time, because once you can create such a strong, it's almost like an anchor, right? You can create this anchor, this conduit of your breath work from heart to womb and womb to heart. And then every day you just start with heart to womb and womb to heart, and your day is connected. You are in your feminine essence. You step in with your intention and your breath, and then you can't help but create a beautiful life because your breath is connected. You're going to breathe with your heart. You're going to breathe with your womb all day long.
And I would imagine that the more and more you do that, that fire that may be dim for some grows and becomes a bonfire. The more you put in the work, the more you see all those parts of yourself, you can expand that fire as much as you possibly want.
Absolutely. And you can even use the fire. So we can use that to heal parts of ourselves, physically, emotionally, intellectually, socially, spiritually. That fire is going to help you with painful periods. That fire is going to take away your headaches. If you can start to understand your inner workings of your energy, and then understand how you can move it through your body, even just through the basics of synovial fluid, right? Just understanding that you can move your energy through your body, you can start to move things easily. A lot of women are kind of stuck. We don't breathe properly. We're kind of tight, right? A lot of us could really benefit from like Mayan abdominal massage or myofascial alignment. And if we can use the breath, then that actually does like half of the work. My guru always said yoga is 50% of the work. Your client's doing yoga, this client's going to be easy for you because you're moving everything. And if you can be in a constant state of movement, whether through breath or yoga or whatever other movement practices you desire to do, you're not going to stay stuck, right? There's a lot of pent up energy. People are afraid. Women are scared of really meeting themselves or they haven't had safe women to hold them or witness them, right?
Mhm.
And so we want to just be able to burst that open. And doing that conduit is actually a really safe beginner's landing, right? You can start to really build your fire.
I love that. So I think another place that we wanted to travel with you today was, speaking of women and how cyclic we are. And I think it's a beautiful next layer to, once you've established that connection with your heart and your womb, and you're dropped into the womb, and something major that goes on there all month long, really, all month, every month, is the cycles that we go through. And I know that you do a lot of work with that. So I don't know if you could expand a little bit more on just the womb in itself, like the womb space, and what takes place there on, all the levels, energetic, hormonal, whatever feels right to share.
Sure. I love that question, Bethany. It is the base foundation of my work. So it's how I got introduced into all of this, how I've been pushed. And like you're saying earlier, doing this as a mission. I really feel like it's a mission. I've tried closing the door. It did not work out well for me. But every time I sink in and surrender into, oh, this is what you want me to do. Okay. Like I surrender, like I am in a humility state. Like I'm so humbled that you want me to support women this way. Okay, let's go, but that is the base of the work, is understanding your cycle. And before we get too deep into it, the disclaimer is we're basing this on a Gregorian calendar, which is not technically how women cycle, which is why the days can be off or we switch cycles, etc., because women are trying to like kind of pull everything back into balance. So I'm just going to leave that as a disclaimer. Those who align and connect with that will connect with that. But the basis of living with your cycle is understanding that there are almost 4 seasons, right? So summer, spring, it's not right. Summer, fall, winter, spring. Okay. And we just keep going in a cycle. It's like the moon cycle, right? There's a full moon, waning, new, and waxing. Maybe it's opposite. My dyslexia perhaps might be showing. I don't know. I mix the waning and waxing all the time. But we understand what I'm trying to say, right? Like there are phases. And in those phases, we can relate to, especially as women, because our phases are about 7 days. So I write this all in my book, Moon Blood, which I received as a download from living in my yurt and living with the moon and putting my blood back into the earth. And then later I found all of this information in a Tertula, which is a very old, I believe it's ancient Roman literature about women's health. It's an epic book. I can leave you guys the show notes for it, or you can put in the show notes.
Yes.
But it talks about yoni steaming like back in the 1500s. Like it's insane, just old knowledge. So then once I realized, oh wow, the cyclical work that you're showing me, moon and blood and earth, like I'm not just woo woo, right? It had this tangible academia to support it. Then I started to write it all out because I'm a very, very like structured. I don't want to be too much in my masculine, but I do find it helpful to be organized. So I do a lot of lists. I do a lot of charts. I like to see it. It's like a visual validation for me if I can organize it in a way that I can look at it. And so I started taking all this information and putting it into a chart. And I put it into a little book. And I call it the flow chart because it's about your flow. And so it's about what you're feeling, what you're loving. There's an objective and there's wisdom. Because at this point, I was teaching women about their cycle. I was having workshops and asking women what they call their vulva, what do they think about their blood, and helping them reinstate a positive narrative about their bodies and their cycle. And so my mind was in this state of, how do I make this so simple? You know, how do I kiss on this? Like, keep it simple, stupid. Like, how do I make this simple? And so I put it into a beautiful chart. And again, I can leave that in the show notes too.
Yeah.
But it is a top line and a bottom line. And the bottom goes through the moon cycles. And the top lines go through your menstrual cycle. I like to try and recapture the word as a moon cycle or as a blood cycle, because lovingly, the word man just doesn't, and I love men. I really do love men, but it's really confusing to me why menstrual has anything, like why, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we can shift that narrative between ourselves in story and in song when we gather, but you take your cycle on the top line and the bottom line has the moon cycle. And this was when I was cycling with the red cycle. From now, we know that there's a pink cycle, a white cycle, a purple cycle, la, 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 la. There's lots of different cycles. But the base of the work is that you are feeling something each week. You are loving something each week. There's an objective there. It's not a punishment. There's a whole point to this. And then there's wisdom. So there's a sacredness to it. And so it's helping women see the flow through this chart. And the best way to do it is to see where you are in your cycle. And if women didn't know where they were at in their cycle, I would tell them to start syncing up with the moon, and then their cycle would regulate themselves. So meaning women who wouldn't bleed for 6 months started bleeding a little more regularly, and then they found their cycle and their rhythm. And you start organizing your life this way. So that's the next step, is you literally take your agenda, your phone, however you organize your life, and you start to creation manifestation mode. So you would write down flow. The easiest way is FLOW in your journal, in your agenda, whatever. And then you pick a word from the chart for each of those things, and you place it there. And that week you're feeling, like for example, when you are bleeding, you are feeling pretty subdued and powerful, right? We're very much introverted, right? We don't want to be expansive. This is we're loving rest, right? Part of the loving and the flow, there's rest. The objective here is catharsis and purging, right? And the wisdom here is to journal and to really explore what happened in that month so that we can make our plans for the next month. And so we can go into this further. This is a very long topic, but ultimately, once you start to understand your flow and who you are in each cycle, then you start to live a life of ease and you are very tapped in and life flows for you. It really does. You're not meant to be hosting a party when you're bleeding. You're just not. You're supposed to be resting, right? Or another way I like to explain this to people is windows open, windows shut. So when you're bleeding, the window is shut. Okay, and then you move into your follicular phase and you kind of open the window a little bit, let some fresh air in. We're still kind of protected, right? Okay, then we move into our ovulation phase and the window's completely open. We're excited, all the air is coming in, life is good. We are into networking, we're feeling sexual, we're energetic, we're magnetic, right? Great time to schedule interviews or ask for a raise. Like your pheromones are just supporting that. And then we start to slow down a little bit. We go into our luteal and we close the window a little bit, go back inwards, a little more introspective, kind of course correct. And then we bleed again and we close the window and we have some privacy. So between the moon, between the seasons, between the windows open, shut, I hope I can show you or at least give you imagery to understand that we're not meant to be the same every single day. It's about every 7 days, the woman's bodies and hormones change. In comparison to our loving men, their cycle is 24 hours. They're a sun cycle, right? So they're like a 9 to 9 every day. That's why they can deal with the same things over and over again. They've got their peak mood, right? Women, it's every 7 days. And I started scheduling my life this way many, many years ago. It's been about a decade of living according to my cycle. And my life just got so much better. Like, I would schedule meetings and interviews and workshops all during my ovulatory phase. And I would really be mindful of who I'm spending time with. And then my cycle would also test me. Like I would have plans with girlfriends when I'm bleeding. I'm like, that's fine. It's just my girlfriend. But then I was really asked to like embody this work further. And I was like, okay, I'm bleeding right now. I'm not available to spend time. I really need to rest. And I was kind of nervous at first because this was what in like the 2005s. And was that? I don't even know. Oh my gosh, it's been longer. This embodiment's been longer. Anyways, and and my girlfriends were so respectful. They're like, that sounds really good. Like, we'll see you next time. And women totally understand. We're just not taught to talk to each other this way. But I think more and more women are feeling the permission to just be like, honor right now.
Yeah, totally. Actually, my friend just messaged me. We were supposed to hang out on this weekend. And she's like, I just started my period. I'm going to hermit. And I was like, I get it. I understand. You do you. Follow yourself. The more we follow ourselves, the more, like you said, life comes with ease when you just follow the rhythm of who it is that you are.
And And it gives other women permission as well.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, where our voices, our bodies have been kind of hijacked over millennia. And right now there's this balancing of women coming back to matriarchy. And so that calling is really polarizing how we act. And it can be scary for women to honor themselves, right?
Right.
There's witch wounds, there's sister wounds, there's all sorts of wounds that are just coming to the surface to be cleared. And it's neat to watch another woman be like, well, now I'm going to just know that she's a safe person and that I can totally be myself and say, I'm bleeding, maybe next time, right?
And again, it allows women to be that divinity that they are. Like, we're really potent beings. So like you said, like, it gives other women permission. And then we're literally just like raising that vibration of women showing up as women.
Yeah. That's what I think it has is permission. It's such a beautiful permission to have other women. Yeah. What's your question for?
I do have a question. So like, for women who have irregular periods and like the work that you do, so let's just say they're having periods for like 9 to 10 days. Like, is this something that you are able to help detox women from? Like, what's the system for women who have irregularity with their periods?
Well, I work on a basis model of 5 pillars. So there's a physical aspect, an intellectual aspect, emotional aspect, a social aspect, and a spiritual aspect. Women, again, are very different physiologically from men. Men, you can kind of be like, goop, doop, cut this out, do this. Like, it just works differently for men. Yeah. I'm not really a fan of surgeries, but still, like, men seem to heal and work better with those types of treatments. Women, on the other hand, we really need the emotional support, right? We really need intellectual support, social support, especially these days, and spiritual support, and we can heal that much faster. So I do a lot of iridology in my clinic. I do a lot of detox in my clinic, a lot of traditional Chinese medicine. I've been working with herbs since I was maybe 2 or 3 years old. Like, it just is the embodiment of my life. It's been herbs, it's been homeopathy. I've worked with naturopaths and homeopaths. A lot of my friendship circles are like chiropractors, cranial sacral, naturopaths, homeopaths. So I've just been in this environment forever. I haven't gone to those types of schoolings. I haven't really felt the need. I did do university, but again, everything kept pulling me into honoring just hearing it. And so for some people that may make me feel ungrounded or without credentials. But I can really say that the embodiment of this like 25 years of work, 25, 22, 23, I can't even, it's like early 2000s. So since I was 12, I started doing my breath work and yoga meditation work every day. And so when you have that much experience, I just trust that God brings me the right women with the support. Exactly. And so far, all of the women who have come with me either really need physical support, and if I can't help you, then I send you to my network of friends.
Love that.
If it's emotional support, then we work through that. I'm trauma informed. So we go deep into the emotional aspect of women, which we are so emotional, right? We have a womb, we have that sacral space, and emotions are very sacred. They are very, very important. Tribes used to ask women who were pre-bleeding and bleeding to share their dreams and their emotions in the morning fire because they were very prophetic. PMS is not really a real thing. It is and it isn't. So over my work, I've realized that if you tune into those emotions, you're highly intuitive before you bleed. And so those highly intuitive emotions are actually going to give you something to work through, and you can purge it, right? The next week, you can purge that emotion. And if you work it, you feel it to heal it, you get through it, that emotion does not repeat next month. It's literally a way to guide community, to guide agriculture, war, like it's just a guide. Women are definitely guides through their blood. But I digress. So women will come to me for the emotional work and then also intellectual work. So I help women to see like, how are they embracing their mind? Are they consuming information that is for them? Are they distracted? Are they into reading and taking care of their mind? Because it is really important. We're in our mind, right? Our spleen is a big organ, especially because it creates so much blood for women. We work with our blood so much. So the spleen is a very integral organ for women. And in traditional Chinese medicine, it can become very weak, right? It's very yin. So women really, really need to support their spleen and their blood. And so if you're overthinking, that tells me that your spleen needs support, because the spleen also stewards the mind, right? The overthinking. So intellectually, women really need support because your spleen, and you work with blood way more than men. Okay, so then socially, who are you hanging out with, right? Who's your A team? Because we have this, maybe it's a societal grooming or indoctrination of women being catty or competitive. And I've had a lot of women be like, wow, you only work with women. Like, how do you do it? I'm like, it's actually really fun. And the trick is to create safety. Women just need safe female relationships. And if you don't have that, then you're going to experience a lot of hurt, a lot of confusion. But if you are surrounded by your A team, like, it's so easy to be a woman. It's so easy to explore the depths with one another because they're safe. Okay, so safe female relationships are also another really important aspect of being a woman.
Thank you for tuning in to Collecting Consciousness.
We're so grateful that you've been on this journey with us so far.
And we look forward to seeing where we are going to expand, curate, and collect.
So if you haven't already liked, subscribed, or shared our content, and you feel called to do so, we would so deeply appreciate it. From our souls to your soul, and our hearts to your minds. We are collecting consciousness.
Heck yeah.
That I really, really push, which is why I do womb healing circles and like us gathering together. Like, it's just creating a cohesive unit of safety. And finally, spiritually, we're just so spiritual as women. And sometimes, lacking a belief in God or a power higher than yourself, or not having a spiritual practice can literally be the only reason you're having an experience that is out of alignment. So with women, I have to go through it all, right? My intake page is about 10 to 15 pages long. We go through the physical. You show me your teeth, your eyes, your nails, your body. We talk. And my consultations are very different. I don't have an end time. I bill by the hour, but it's up to you to show up in your presence. So you want to chat for 4 hours? Yes, I'm 100% holding that space because some women have a lot to share. This isn't a 15, 20 minute where I'm checking your vitals. And I also don't ever need to see your vulva. I don't ever need to touch your vulva. It's just not. I don't need to. And the work that you can do in balancing your cycle or your hormones or working through your trauma has to go through those 5 pillars. So if you have, say for your example, an irregular cycle, I'm going to see physically, okay, what's your tongue look like? Are we expressing a lot of energy from your spleen? How are your teeth? Have you had a lot removed? Where are your cavities? Let me check your iris. So I do like a physical, non-invasive. These are non-invasive diagnostic tools. You also tell me what you eat, how you sleep. And I also want to know about your mother, her lineage, your father, his lineage. That's also very important. Where you came from, if there's been war, if there's trauma. I want to know about, again, your traumas. I want to know about any breaks in the body, any big events like that have triggered your changes, right? So we go through a physical thing. And then if it's not physical, then we start to work on the emotional. And I create such safety and I hold such a tight space that you can really, like, women share, like I said, from the beginning of my life, the craziest shit with me. And it's amazing. Like, nothing surprises me now. Nothing. It's pretty cool. I have worked with all types of women. And they're like, I don't know if I should tell you. Like, I don't feel this is weird. And I'm like, oh, just spill. Spill it all. Because once you are witnessed, you can feel it too. And I find that women, more so than men, really need to be witnessed. Like, we legitimately need to be witnessed. And I've seen this in healing circles. We don't need to be, like, women will cry. And the rule is you're not supposed to go over to that woman and hug her and console her. Like, you're supposed to witness because we're powerful enough to move through it. And if a woman is witnessed, she will heal. It is like the hack into healing things with women. We need to be listened to. So you go into these gynecological appointments at 15, 20 minutes. Absolutely not woman-centered care, right? It's not compassionate. They barely know your body lovingly, like they haven't been taught, so I'm not hating on them, but it's just not enough time for a woman to open up to feel safe. And we take time. We take time for arousal. We take time for pleasure. We take time for safety. We take time for creation. We just take time. We are time. We create time. So we're time benders. And, if a woman can work on her emotional safety and health with me, then we can start to go into all the other layers. So sorry, I can't give you like a straight up answer, but it legit depends on each woman, right? Yeah. So like, then I would
It's a full spectrum too, it feels like.
It has to be. With women, we are full spectrum. We are not 9 to 9. Where are you at in your cycle? What is the color of your blood? Like, what kind of herbs are you taking or not taking? What's your spiritual practice? That is a big one. Big one. Especially with the way the world is changing, you need some kind of higher power. You need God, you need goddess, you need that understanding that you are a part of something bigger than yourself. And then socially, again, like I said, being in participation with safe female relationships. So I address all of the issues and then we go from there, because for some women it's literally like it's a nourishment thing. We've been kind of sold this whole vegan thing, which is great. Veganism is very helpful for pulling things from the body. Absolutely. I was vegan for many years when I was curing my endometriosis. Time and place. In your breeding years, it's absolutely inappropriate. You need to be meat makes meat, like I will not touch a vegan client for perinatal support. I just will not. If they start eating meat, I will. But the vegan placenta versus a meat eating placenta is very different, and it creates a medical issue for me. So if you would like an out of the system birth, I cannot fully ethically, in my scope, support you if you're not nourishing yourself in those breeding years, which is very important. Eggs, meat, animal fats. It's so important for your brain health, your spleen health.
We're big meat eaters.
I love that you said that. I'm like, praise God.
The collagen, give us all the collagen.
Oh Lord, yeah. I'm just like such a proponent, and you're so right. We've been so brainwashed that on so many levels that the veganism is the movement, but I'm so happy you mentioned that because it's huge. It's so huge. Yeah.
I had a client who was like, I'm so anxious all the time. I'm like, well, what do you eat? I was all like flowers and plants, which is really nice in the summer, or really nice if you're in a phase of your life where you're trying to use the higher aspects of your body or your essence or your chakras, right? But like, you're trying to ground and you're feeling ungrounded, you need meat, you need potatoes, you need root vegetables. Like what comes from the earth, that's what you need. If you want more mindset work, you take like light foods, right? So, and it's living cyclically and living and honoring the season of life you're in. I right now am holding on to more weight than I ever have in my life. And the mainstream media will tell me all sorts of things that it's an opinion. I know that I look at my children and they're so robust. They're so healthy because they are siphoning literally from me. And I'm going to have my mind in menopause because I'm not depleted. And so where does osteoporosis come from in terms of women's physiology is being depleted during breeding years. So then when you're in your next hormonal cycle, your next big hormonal phase of cronehood, you don't have the nutrition to support your bones. Like all the minerals are stored in your marrow. And I see so much depletion. So really, women, take up space, and nourish yourselves. Like all life comes from you. And so take that role seriously. Compartmentalize what your body looks like. It's just going to go in and out and in and out your whole life because we have over 72 cycles of hormonal changes, excluding pregnancy. So add on, you start having children, and that has its own subcategory of how many hormonal changes. So go easy on yourself. Take up the space. Eat the steak. Have a nice stew. Put some butter in there. Fatten up. Enjoy your life. And like, watch your brain change. Watch your brain change.
Yeah. That's amazing. One thing I just wanted to touch on, because maybe people listening, women listening, might be in partnership like you are and I am, and they might have husbands or boyfriends that they want to start honoring their cycles, their flow. They want to start honoring their women flow. How do you have any tips for how you just exist like that? alongside of a male partner, and maybe this is a huge like left-hand turn for a woman in that partner's life where you start putting up those boundaries like, no, sorry, right now is not my time to go do X, Y, and Z, because you know what I mean? Just when you start vocalizing those boundaries with your partner, do you have any tips for that?
Big time.
Okay.
Big time. Especially in a heterosexual relationship, because that's my experience. So when you're with a man, what I've learned, especially in a serial monogamous relationship, which I never thought I was into, but hey, it's actually really amazing for expansion and growth. And so in a monogamous relationship with a male, the best way to guide them through this type of change is a lot of positive reinforcement and a lot of like staying in your feminine about it. So we can feel like the deep resentment or the deep frustration that they don't get it, and it can kind of come out and be like, well, I'm not doing that. It's very masculine when we kind of just burst, right? Like that tension release. So what I really welcome women to do is to just really stay in a loving space, first and foremost. They're not going to understand. Just want to set the premise. They just will not. Lovingly. They have their own world. They have their own experience, you know? So they were not going to understand. Okay, so how do we help them to understand? You print off my chart. You put it all over your house. This is what I did with my husband. It was on the fridge. I sent him one as like a PDF for his phone. And we just started to talk more about it lovingly. I was like, I'm just really not feeling well enough to go out and be around other people right now. I'm going to take my time to rest. Do you think that you could make me a tea, please? Be very direct and loving and feminine, and men just love to support. They don't understand. So like give them grace because they don't have that many cycles. And also understand the timing and how you approach your partner. So another tip I've learned in being in a marriage is to not talk to a man at night about changes in life or big, expansive, creative, because their big burst of creation energy is like 10 to 2. Okay. After that, it starts to like wane. All right. So if you want total response and like respect to how you would like your life to be, you know, again, respected and responded to, have some tact and strategy. And this isn't to be like, oh, you need to strategize how to deal with your husband. It's just understanding male essence and female essence. And if you want the success, I find being more feminine and really flowy about it is just so much more reciprocated. So then I can also share about my sister and how she integrated this work around 2021. And she has at this point, so they would be 14, 12, and another, I think he was 8 at this point. 3 boys in the house, plus her husband. And teaching them, right? Now we're shifting. We've lived our life. However, mom being a martyr, she didn't really have many boundaries about her corporate world and her spiritual world. Other than her meditation practice, she's very strict about having that in her life, but she did everything. And one day she's like, I just cannot do this. It is affecting my health. And she started implementing lovingly. Could you please, like I said, make me a tea? It's your turn to make dinner tonight. So without making it about the cycle so much, but just enforcing a loving, kind boundary at first. So it just becomes something we do. And then later it's like, oh, mom's not wearing makeup. She's just chilling. Oh, hey, mom, I made you a tea. Right? And they start to understand your flow, right? You create the cycle. Women are...
They see the habits.
That's it. They see the habits. And again, it's cyclical. So men will pick up on it. They will. It might take a little bit of time. But I think that's why women joke about planting a seed and then making it the husband's idea. It's not to make fun of them at all. It's just they live in a different cycle. So like we know we've already planned this, but they need to go through it in different ways. And it takes them a different breadth of space to understand and to tap into that. So it's just honoring each person where they're at. So my tips and tricks are that, talking about it lovingly, also printing out the chart so that they have a visual and be like, oh, totally. Yeah. And the words are really helpful in the chart because it goes through the feelings, because women have a lot of feelings and the men can't really like fully put their thumb on it, their finger on it, right? They're like, there's just so much irritation. But then if you can go to the chart and be like, she's irritated and she's cleaning. Ooh, next week,
I'm going to clean.
Totally. Because that's something we do actually in our luteal phase. You get really into cleaning because as women, we would go and sit in fire and red tent together. So we'd prepare. We would take care of our families prior to leaving. We would make food. We would set the space. Right. It's literally in our blood. It's in
it's ancient. It's ancient.
Mm-hmm. Women's gatekeeping knowledge. It's old. Yeah. It's old.
It's so funny you mentioned the red tent. I have a funny little thing. We have a funny thing in my household with me and my husband. And when I'm going into the menstruation, because there's a couple days before the bleed that I, get just don't touch me, that when you would probably go to the tent. So I'm I'm in tent mode.
That's awesome.
I love it.
Throw up the tent. So he knows about the red tent. And I'm
again, visualization.
No, because I'm there now and I just don't want to be around you right now.
Totally. And they not take it personal, then to not take these things personally.
Yeah.
We're understanding each other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Humor works.
Yeah. Yes.
So well with men.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's like a tension release. Men really get pent up. And then there's explosions, right? All sorts of ways. So if we can learn how to communicate and kind of vent the steam a little bit, that also really helps. And again, this isn't manipulation. We're not trying to control things. We're just trying to understand, he's a little pent up. How can I diffuse this a little bit for me?
Right. The nurturing as an aspect of what women are. Tap into your gifts.
Be feminine about it, and without resentment that they can't be more feminine. Everybody wants the masculine man, but they don't want all the bullshit that comes with it. And honestly, it's just a part of it. They're intense, but they're protective. They're gonna be loud, but that's again to protect. So having boundaries and setting them up in a really loving way and giving them non-confrontational information is going to go really, really well. Yeah.
Beautiful.
That was a beautiful answer. You got a question?
Do you have something, Bethany?
Well, there was one burning thing that I wanted to chat about.
Is it what we were talking about earlier?
I'm not sure. Well,
the Yoni steaming? Yeah, cool. Because that's what I wanted to go with too.
Great. This is a great topic. I love this. Yeah. Hit me up.
Well, okay, cool. So, I thought it was last night I really was tapping into your essence, your who you are. And I did my first Yoni steaming and it was so magical. It was so fucking magical. And I'm excited to have this now a part of my practice. This morning, I did a full body steam for myself. So I'm just really excited. So the question I have, it's interesting. I find your podcast has really gotten me to get even more layered with things, more intentional. And, we are 70 to 80% full of water. So it makes sense why this ancient practice is so sacred, so magical. The steamings, for women that have never done steamings before, can you just expand on the purpose and the outcome and just the alchemy of water and steaming?
Absolutely. I love this question. Again, this is an ancient modality, and I came to it in my postpartum with my first child. It all kind of just showed up. I knew I wanted to steam. I met a girlfriend who was doing this, and I hired her to come and set up a steam for me in my home. This was a week postpartum. I knew that it helped with just healing the space. I just saw a lot of marketing and information about it. And then I experienced a cervical prolapse. And at this point, my first birth was still in the system. It was supposed to be a home birth, but they really like hijacking the first-time mother. And I would love to talk about, out of the system birth another time. But I'm very passionate about it. I'm a birth companion. Yeah,
come back for that one because I'm gearing up for that journey and, in my own personal life. So I'm a huge proponent of uncovering that information for people. Yeah.
It really feels like an uncovering, doesn't it, Bethany?
It does.
Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Mm-hmm.
So pardon me?
I was going to say, anyways, continue. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, no.
I get excited about that topic. That's a passion.
Me too.
Yeah.
Totally. So I'm experiencing a cervical prolapse, due diligence. I reach out to my midwife, say I'm experiencing this. And their response was, that's normal. I'm like, as a woman who's really in tune with her body, this feels really wrong. But then I started to really explore what it looked like, and my vulva was like blue. And yeah, birth can take a beating, right? But it was almost like borderline necrosis. So I was like, there's some kind of twist, or something is like pent, like I'm not getting enough blood to all the areas, and how am I supposed to heal fully? And I called my girlfriend again, and she's like, I'm going to ask all my steaming friends, because I wasn't really into doing steaming. This was like a new thing for me, which I'll get into later, that it's actually really old in my lineage, which I think is so funny. But anyway, yeah, it's so cool. My sister's like, oh my gosh, did you know grandma? Anyway, so I think it's so cool.
That. And that's like, that's your ancestors with you this whole time.
That's it. And you need it, like I needed to have that experience so that I could fully embody this work more, right? So she helped, my friend helped me. She brought a stool over. She talked to other friends about a steaming protocol for me. And she said, 30 days, steam for 10 minutes with these herbs. She set me up, and I really connected to myself. I journaled about it every day. I looked with a mirror. I took all the notes, and it took about 22 days, but it was a full reverse in the cervical prolapse, which in a Western opinion is going to be, they ask you to do like, different contraptions, like it's very sexualized, like different contraptions up in your vaginal canal, like just, or Kegels, like don't get me started on how useless Kegels can really be. And like, understanding the proper physiology of a woman, how we're supposed to stand. A lot of Western opinion is to tuck the pelvis under. It's actually, your pelvis is supposed to be stuck out. If you look at a beautiful African woman, right, that's a beautiful imagery. The big, bodacious, beautiful bottom, her belly is tight and taut because she's holding herself properly. A woman's bum is actually supposed to be out. Your pelvis is supposed to have, your spine is supposed to have a natural curve. And so understanding that my physiology needed to, like my actual structure of how I held myself needed to change, plus integrating all of this potent medicine of yoni steaming, everything went back up. And when you hold yourself that way, it's very hard to have a prolapse because you're in a proper way. Whereas if you're slouching, things are like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just not the right place for everything. A misalignment will occur.
The ergonomics are off.
That's it. So I experienced yoni steaming as a very powerful healing modality, and I dove deeper into it. And one thing I've learned over the experience of yoni steaming myself and providing the service for other women is it is a highly potent dosing system for women. So we'll get into the science of it because I'm a super nerd and I love science. It really comes down to increasing the potency of the herbs. So you set up a steam by getting water, set your intention, right? Put the herbs into the water, and then you boil it for about 10 minutes to release all of the oils and terpenes. If you're making a tea, you don't do that. But when you are yoni steaming, you want to break apart the fibers. You want to release all of the oils. Never, ever steam with essential oils. Ever, ever. Absolutely not. Never, ever steam when you're bleeding. Never, ever. Right? So you've released all these oils, and then you sit over this pot. So you can find yoni stools, you can literally squat, you can put 2 chairs together and have your vulva in the opening. There's so many ways to do this on the cheap, on the easy. And what this does is it releases those oils into your vaginal membranes. Your vagina is a highly absorbable mucus membrane, right? Your mucus membrane of your nose is highly absorbable, right? Your mouth, right? We absorb flavors and everything goes into the blood. It's the same thing with your vagina, okay? You're a mucus membrane. So if you're taking steam and those oils are being released, you're receiving a high potency dose of medicine, right? Whatever you're using. It's the same with the anus. A lot of men in emperor times of China, there was a lot of steaming for men, right? On the emperor's throne. Actually just sitting over a bunch of herbs all day, right? Very beautiful. This is a highly absorbable space for both men and women. And so yoni steaming is medicine, yoni steaming is connection to your essence, yoni steaming is healing. And over the past few years, I've actually explored that yoni steaming is a holistic contraceptive. So what are the bases of yoni steaming? Don't steam while you're bleeding, don't steam while you're trying to conceive. Then, I flipped that and I said, well, what if I take a highly potent dose of abortifacient herbs or antiparasitic herbs? And I dove deeper into that because I knew papaya seeds for a very long time in the 2000s that papaya seeds were a great natural contraceptive. But I wasn't embodied enough to try that, right? I wasn't embodied enough to be like, let's explore semen and then just rely on papaya seeds. Like I was just way too young to like play with all of that, right? And then once I started making children and I'm in my breeding years, I'm in a very safe relationship, we want to explore growing our family, I started to really explore this. And I did, and I had a loss, and that's why I have one angel baby. That was her agreement with me the whole time. So I was about, I think, 3-4 months postpartum. I received my blood very quickly after having children. It's about 3 months. I'm extremely fertile. Western medicine told me I'd never have children. I healed endometriosis, which is also healable. Anyways, so I was pregnant so soon and so fresh in postpartum, and it was so intense. It was actually quite frightening for my husband and I to think we're doing this again, like so soon. So we both agreed to try a natural herbal abortion. And what I learned since then is that was my sole agreement with this child. There was so much grief and so much devastation. I've never experienced an abortion otherwise. I know it can be very traumatic and very sterile environment and very just life altering for a woman. Any abortion is, no matter holistic or not. And this loss, like it was a roller coaster because she came, I was pregnant, and I, like the whole time I'm preparing the steam, I'm sobbing, you know, like it was also quite beautiful because my family was having a bath and I was steaming in the bathroom. Like it was very sacred. It was very like a whole family dynamic of all of us together. And, you know, then it didn't work. And my knowledge at that point was if it doesn't give you your blood in a few days, then you're like, it's unethical. And so I told my husband, I no longer feel ethical in continuing doing this steam. This child is supposed to come through. I surrender, right? So we did a conscious conception ceremony and welcomed her in. And we're like, okay, let's do this. And then the roller coaster arrived where the herbs actually did work. And it just took time. And I had a miscarriage. So the very emotional experience. But again, those deep emotional experiences are how I can understand this work and nurture the understanding of that this is deep work, right? It's embodiment. So I have that experience of my loss, and it was so heartbreaking. And we actually couldn't even really heal that until my next child was born. And he really helped us to fully heal because we buried this little like baby in our forest, and the whole family came together. The whole experience was so filled with healing and love. And I know that's not the experience for a lot of women. And so now I offer this for women as an option because I walk with them the whole way. It's just as emotional. It's just as guilt-ridden. It's just as intense, and it's just as regretful. But sometimes you have to make the choice too. Like, do you really want to do a termination? Because they will kind of ask you and guide you through it in a Western opinion, but it's still not compassionate. It's not very woman-centered, and there's a lot of trauma associated with it. Whereas when you work with me, I am extremely compassionate and loving, and some women have decided not to. Some women have decided to. Some women have decided to do this method and use a Western method on top. So it's very interesting how women experience making babies, releasing babies, miscarriages, loss, stillbirths, right? Like, it's just part of life, and it's just a part of death. And if you can understand this yoni steaming as a tool, right, as a tool for your sexual autonomy, as a tool for your fertility, as a tool for your embodiment, then you're practicing free will at the end of the day. You're practicing understanding your body, and you're practicing understanding how you're creating. Right? How you are choosing to create. And so yoni steaming is a holistic contraceptive as well as a holistic conception method. This is like a beautiful tool for helping irregular cycles, elongating cycles, shortening cycles, terminating pregnancies, avoiding pregnancies, creating pregnancies. Like, it just comes down to grass and sticks and water, right? And we can also understand how full of water we are, right? How full of water we are, and we move with the moon, we move with tides, we move with the sun, we move with cycles. Then understanding that water is going to bring that vitality. It's going to bring the medicine up. It's also going to move through your whole body, right? It's not just going to stay in your womb, it's going to move through your blood. It's also going to move through your spirit. Water is very cleansing. And that's why I said you start the yoni steaming practice with intention, because after you're done, say your intention is to receive my blood. My intention is to receive my blood. Okay, then when you're done your steam, you go and you put that water back into the earth. You empty it out, and you create an inner and outer biofeedback system, which is, again, really important for women. This is the spiritual aspect of being a woman. Your inner world and your outer world are direct reflection of one another. So if you can have some modicum of control, really we don't, but if you can have some intention behind your experience and you're putting it back into the earth, then you're saying to the earth much more intentionally, I am receiving my blood. Or another intention is, I would like to be more calm. Another intention is, I would like to heal this father wound. Another intention is, I would like to find sacred women to share circle with. I would like to heal this part of myself. Like, water is always, like, we're sitting here drinking our tea. It is literally our life, right? So if you can bring more water into your life, you will have more flow in your life, right?
Or alchemy.
That's how you can use alchemy to create the life you like.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
I'll be reaching out. I will definitely be reaching out for some. It's been on my radar for it's so silly, but for probably 5-ish years now was the first time I had experienced yoni steam was about 5 years ago. And it was super beautiful, and I wanted to do it, but there's just been this roadblock of investment. So I really like that you are just this can be on the cheap, or you can go buy the whole setup. Because at the time, the way that it was being sold to me was buying the whole setup. It was $150 investment. I was just I never made, which is so sad. I never made that in my, made that fund available in, my finances. But I've just been doing a lot for healing to prepare to have a child. So I feel this is the next
level,
and to be able to use it through pregnancy and postpartum. I'm so excited to have this tool. I'm ready. It feels really appropriate to have this tool in the kit. So I'm definitely going to be reaching out about that for sure.
Yeah. You're not really supposed to steam so much while you're pregnant, but you can use it during labor. Which I found is really helpful, and just,
opening.
For opening, exactly, and supporting relaxation. Again, if you're feeling really stressed out, then you can take some chamomile and some lavender in a different way, right? Birth is I call it sphincter law. It's if you can't open up, you're not around safe people. You're in an environment that you don't enjoy. For some people, the hospital's perfect, and it's just they can open right up. They feel so safe, right? I really like my house. All my stuff's here. My shower, my kids, my food.
So were all your children born at home?
The 3 last ones were. The first one was in a hospital. I labored at home for about 45 hours, and the midwives were just too tired and started, they kind of
pushed you over, or they hijacked you.
Kind of they told my husband to go take a nap, and then they started persuading me that I was just taking too long. But with all of my studies and attending births, first-time mothers take time. So most recent birth took about 56 hours. There's no refund. This baby's coming out. There's
nowhere to go but out.
No way out but through. And, actually, I'm doing a podcast episode today, a solo episode about a famous yogi couple who just had a baby, and I can see her processing the trauma of a C-section, that the lie they told her about. And I hope that she really feels the love in this. I haven't said anything to her personally, because it's so, postpartum is so precious. You literally remember postpartum for the next 40 years. Wow. You will remember every detail of it. Who came, who didn't, who promised you something and didn't bring it. Who, it's just a very formative time. Well,
I didn't even think about it, but how open you are, the creation, the portal that is our womb. All I think about postpartum is depression. So this is giving me a new insight. Literally, this is giving me a crazy new insight. So, you're so open.
I think those 40 days are important to close back up. What were you going to say, Beth?
I feel that I've been listening to a ton for years now, like in prepping me for this journey of free birthers. They're called in the States. I don't know, it's different, but you're saying the same thing. Yeah, what the message that I received so deeply out of all of the episodes is how postpartum is this like truly like you need to nurture yourself. Like I've already been like bookmarking meals that I want to make ahead of time,
Cool.
prepare and put in the fridge because like we don't want to have that stress and like
Right.
something that like truly no ill intention to my husband, but like he really isn't like understanding the depth of like what I feel I know. And I've never heard explained how you explain the connection between the root and the crown. And I'm like, oh my God, that did just blast my mind open in a whole new energetic, like that's also why it's so important to be just totally nurtured. I've even thought about like, when the time comes, can I pay my best friend to be here for like a week? Can I pay Courtney to come and like be here for a week?
Yes, you can.
And to have, and just to have those, like you said, like your A team close by, keep the people close. It's a very just like, it's a sacred time.
It's sacred.
And for first time, births, like your first birth, I think that's a super, it's such an initiation into you're not just the two people together anymore. Like
the motherhood.
Like it's a precious time. Like, so I feel that sacredness. So yeah, I'm excited for I'm excited for it all, but yeah.
It is. It's really exciting. It's a total rite of passage. And I think that could be why, like, there's so much power in it. And I think perhaps maybe that's why it is hijacked, because it's just so powerful. It is your initiation into the next phase of your life. It is how you're going to mother, how you have your pregnancies, how you're going to have your birth, and how you have your birth is how you're going to mother this child. And it all makes sense. It so makes sense. My son at 7 weeks pregnant told me who he was, how we're going to have this birth. It was in a hospital, like the dream and everything. And I was like, totally dismissing it. I was like, no way. And it was so healing to have that, because when I experienced what I did, I was able to heal from it. So I'm not saying that's the only way to heal from it, but what it helped me to do is realize this was my path with this son for this family, because it's not just your lineage, but it's also your partner's lineage, right? So the placenta is actually made from the man. So the placenta is based on the husband's or partner's nutrition, his experience, his DNA.
Wow.
So you grow, women are so badass, we literally grow another organ the size of a dinner plate, but it comes from the man. And what I really want to share is that if you have a traumatic first birth, you can absolutely heal from it. Sometimes that's what it's supposed to be, because it's healing lineage stuff. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I'm trying to get at here is like, when you become pregnant, it is beyond you and your control and your experience and your knowledge. Like, it is just beyond that. I had the knowledge. My son told me that it was going to come this way. And I was like, no, I'm doing a free birth. I'm doing this at home. But I was extremely judgmental about women and epidurals. Big time, right? Growing up doing herbs since 2 years, like for my whole life, picking herbs from the gardens, going into the forest, like, it sounds so romantic, but it also creates this like expectation for my life.
Right.
And so then when I went into motherhood, I'm like, of course I'm free birthing. Of course I'm doing this.
The surrender that happens.
Fucking humbling. Now I also understand why women take epidurals. I really do. First of all, after that many hours of like strange people torturing you and fingering you and doing all this weird sexualized rape shit, give me some drugs. Yes, please.
Yes.
Zone out, right?
Dissociate. Yes, 100%.
Big time. The other reality of it is at that point, your sphincter is opened and closed so much. It is really helpful to have some relief from that, right? So really having the right people in the space and really understanding that those people have the same values as you and understanding where you're going for a service, right? You don't go to a hot dog stand for a donut.
Yeah.
Right? If you go to the hospital, they're probably going to have interventions. And for some women, that is totally okay, right? But I would say my experience of seeing women and their essence and their power, it's very, very little do we need that. Like birth is not a medical thing. It's just birth. Like, it's just birth. It's coming out. The woman needs encouragement. And actually, right when
safety.
Yes, to open up. And right when she thinks she can't do it, that's actually when it's about to happen.
Wow.
Like, that's just the mind works that way. It's called a catecholamine surge. And labor land and that whole aspect of being in this space, you can't really talk. Your body's expanding. You're really being asked to stretch yourself. Like, you think you've surrendered, you need to surrender more. And then you have this surge of, I'm going to die. I can't fucking do this. Oh my God. And that's when everybody, that's when people who are not educated on physiological birth freak out. Everybody freaks out. It's taking too long. Now something's wrong. Da-da-da-da.
Right.
Now their head's cut off. Whereas I say, and my mentor says, oh, sounds like the baby's coming. I'm going to go put on the kettle.
Yeah.
Like, really harnessing, like, so that whole point for that woman in that space is to have a catecholamine surge. It's a hormonal shift in the body so that she can wake up and catch her baby. Because in labor land, you're just like really going through ancestral work or physical work or emotional work or the traumas you've been through. Like, it's a deep psychedelic space. And that catecholamine surge is like, wake up. Here we go. Baby's good. Yeah. So what are you going to do? You're going to freak out. You're going to be like, I can't do that. That's when we know, okay, you're back. You've brought your baby from the stars.
I love that.
Baby. So it's just educating. If you understand the human women's physiology, we're so simple. We are really so simple, so powerful. It's easy. All of it is easy. If you understand a first-time mother's going to take time, you don't make plans. You don't make her feel like she's taking a long time. I had a client recently. She was all the way. She's 2.5 hours away in another province. I went home. I'll see you later when I see you, you know, and it's just what it is. You have to work through it yourself. I'm not going to be there to like fix your stuff. You're really going to have to go deep to do your work. And as women, we have that option in birth and pregnancy and everything. And I really think you can heal if you want to have children and you cannot. I really believe you can. And if you can't, there is some kind of block, either for like you're not the right person, or you are meant to experience life in a different way with children. Like, there's just an acceptance of your creative and fertile autonomy, and anything is healable if you really want it to be. Some women have come to me and say they want children, but really they don't. Really, really do not. And it's just interesting how powerful your mind is in control of your heart and your womb space and how you create in this world.
Yeah, it's all very layered topics. You know, we can dive deep in all of these topics. Yeah. I think it would be wonderful to have you on the podcast again sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. Chat deeply about women.
Yeah. And getting people to be inspired and find their tribes, find their people, find their wisdom. It all lies within. And when, like you said earlier, just like allowing women to be witnessed, it truly is healing. It truly is powerful. Thank you so much for all your wisdom today. I knew it was going to be a potent episode, and I cannot wait to listen to it again.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun to dive deeply and speak openly and honestly. And I hope women hear permission, right? You can be yourself. You can be powerful, take up space, have the life you want because you're creating it. And I'd love to be back again sometime.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like it was such a comprehensive episode. And before you go, where can people find you? So if they want to reach out to you and get in touch with you,
Absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram at Kasia the Temple, Kasia the Temple. And you can also find me on my website, which is the same, kasiathetemple.com. Feel free to reach out. We can book a little targeted healing appointment. You can also just book a one-to-one. I also have different services and products there. You can buy herbal blends from my biodynamic farm, and I ship worldwide. I also sell yoni stools that my magical carpenter husband makes out of pure cedar, and all sorts of wonderful goodies on there. So you can find me on Instagram and on my website, and feel free to reach out anytime.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I so appreciated it. Yeah, it was a beautiful conversation.
Thank you.
Until the next time, we thank you. We thank you. We thank you. And we are collecting consciousness. Thank you for tuning in. And we look forward to continuing the wisdom down the line.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye.